Rockin' North America, the Caribbean, and Europe. It's LA Lloyd Rock 30.
Hey, it is L.A. Lloyd. Believe it or not, Leigh Kakaty's with me today for his 15th time co-hosting the Rock 30 Countdown. It's always a pleasure to see and have you, and thanks for being on the show today, man.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me back.
So, last time you were on the show, we spoke virtually back in June of 2020. COVID had really, shut everything down during that time. So, before we get into talking about the music, just moving forward almost a year later, how are things looking now heading into the summer of 2021?
I mean, we're optimistic. There's shows booked, there's festivals booked. Being in Michigan, which was a state that's hit hard, things are kind of back to normal. I mean, I've been vaccinated myself. So it's you got to think that, around the corner, it's going to be positive and we'll be back to normal here sooner than later. So we're fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think the vaccination thing that, everyone seems to be doing now is kind of at least giving me a more hopeful and, like you said, an optimistic view on it for sure. So I'm glad that that's, going nicely, at least for the live shows,
Absolutely.
So, just a short time ago, you guys announced the release date of Versatile, which is your sixth studio album, which is coming out on May 21st. So, due to the pandemic, did you have other dates as a possibility? Because, even as of today, we still don't 100% know kind of what the certainty is of things moving forward. But I was just kind of curious if this had always been the set date.
No. The original plan was to put it out last spring and be on tour. We had a tour set up then. So it was, and just as before COVID hit, I think we still had some mixing and mastering, maybe one or two songs to touch up. But it was pretty much done, and we were out in Los Angeles. So they shut down the city and we kind of all dispersed, if we were going to be quarantined, which is again, a word that none of us really, I'd never heard of that word before personally, before a year and a half ago.
Exactly.
So it was like, okay, what does that mean? Oh, we literally have to go home and stay there. Like, really? Like, for real?
Yeah.
I think it was so shocking to most of us, that, well, if we were going to do that, we all kind of wanted to go spend it with our families. And we were literally going to be done in the studio and then have 3 or 4 weeks off. I think so. It was huge. We normally only get 10 days off. So it was a nice, long, welcome break that we were all looking forward to, kind of recharging our batteries and then heading out for that spring tour with a new album. So That was the original plan. And then, of course, it all kind of went awry.
Yeah. Well, the same day you guys announced the release date of Versatile, you also released another track from the album called Set Me Free, which, I kind of felt like I knew what this song was going to be about before I even listened to it, because we'd all, as you said, just almost felt like you were being punished and sent to detention and you were ready to get out. Is that kind of where that song came from, or was it completely done before the pandemic started?
No, all of it was written before the pandemic.
Wow.
So it's interesting, I'm doing these interviews now, my head was in a different place. Now these songs mean totally something different to me. It's ironic how they almost predict the future in a way, how you're going to feel, It's like, again, I can always relate to a song differently. And sometimes now as you get a little bit older in the project, you don't overthink it. Sometimes you don't even realize you might be feeling a certain song, you just gotta go with the theme or the point of the song, and you kind of put yourself in that world, and as the songs kind of evolve and become a part of your live show, you're like, wow, this really relates to life, and these songs for sure definitely Set Me Free makes a lot of sense now.
If I'm not mistaken, we did an interview in San Antonio a few years ago, and it seemed like there was a song you told me about that you literally, like on the 11th, hour, went back into the studio because you were listening to it in the car or something. Is like, man, I got to change this. Am I right on this? Because I vaguely remember that story.
Great memory. That was Waking Lions last year. Yes. I think this album, that song was Breathe Again for me. It's like, it wasn't quite the fourth quarter like Waking Lions was, but again, verses are something that I love to kind of manipulate up until, I'm not allowed anymore. I'm like, no, we submitted it. You've got to be done. It's done. So I like to kind of, just play with melody until I can't anymore. And I probably learned a lot from that Waking Lions experience for sure.
Well, yeah, because I was just kind of curious if, since you did have this extra time that you like you said, oh, let me go back and just do this one more little thing. Did you ever run into that at all?
Kinda, maybe there was one or two things, but for the most part, this experience has been like, again, we've been doing 200 plus shows probably since '07. So This was like a much needed break, I think, even though we didn't want it. I think that once we got it, it was so refreshing to kind of man, get a year with our family and friends. I thought I knew my family and friends, but I haven't really known them in my adult life. I mean, we got signed in, 06, 07, whatever it was. And, we've been doing it for ever since. So to get back home, I think was refreshing. Then we got a little bored and some of us took some real jobs just to have something to do.
Right.
I did some press the other day. I think they twisted it a bit. It's not like that we met. Well, in some ways we need to get some, of course, we need to make money. The rock and roll is about keeping the lights on,
Yeah.
So every band member is different, why their needs are and why they want it. But I know for the most part, for a lot of us, we'd never had this much downtime. And then normally if we'd have downtime, we would just go up to the local pub or bar and jam out, but we weren't allowed to do that either. So, to find new skills and maybe, give ourselves a position when the music is, because that's, I think, a fear for anyone, right? Again, I watch a lot of sports, so maybe I'm relating it to sports. LeBron coming to the end of his career, Kobe. I was watching an interview on what he was going to do after he was done and retired, and to have this kind of foreshadowing of like, oh wow, it's not that scary now. Like we can be home and work something different than music, and still have a heartbeat. So I mean, it was kind of scary in those ways, but it was just about recharging and not really kind of getting away from music for a minute. But of course, it's always there. And for me, especially, this is full time for me every day. So, it's been nice to kind of think about the band in a different perspective and having to be in the front lines every day. So if I had to look at it a positive, that was a positive.
Right. Well, it's kind of funny you say that because my next question kind of deals with negativity. I mean, it was a rough 2020 election, and then COVID is ramping up. And like you said, a lot of these songs, or all the songs, were written before this really happened. But I was just kind of curious, when you have this negativity on social media and television surrounding you every day, does it hinder your creativity, or does it actually add to it and makes it easier to write?
No, I think it adds to it. I mean, it's definitely such a pandemic is so, it's like something you read in a history book,
right.
I mean, what was it? Early 1900s. Yeah. This was the last time we had a pandemic. Like, we never thought we'd live through something like this. So the cool thing is, even though there's a lot of negative things for a lot of different people, a lot of families, the cool thing about it all is we're all together in this, like everyone around the world. It's not like it's a US thing. It's everyone's dealing with it. So I think, with press trying to just be honest about like what you're dealing with. I think that's what fans want to hear. They want to be like, wow, I'm going through that too. Like, you guys worked a job. That's so cool. Like, wow, I didn't even think, and I want them to hear that rather than they just think that we're just at home sitting there, pen and pad and paper, like nonstop. It's like, it's hard to write when you don't know when you're going to play again. You know what I mean? Because you're constantly thinking about like, oh, well, I want to write this song, but I want to play it for someone right now, and some ways now, like these interviews have helped though, because whether it's Instagram takeovers live, Facebook takeovers, like stuff like that, interviews now, video interviews, you can get like a hands-on kind of face-to-face perspective on what a person's dealing with, both on and off the stage from musicians. So that's been a positive. But, look, you just try to, it's the kind of person you are, you want to focus on the negative or you want to try to move forward. And luckily for me personally, that the new album's been on the horizon. And a lot of these songs have taken a different meaning to motivate me in a way that I had no idea they would, when we first wrote them.
Right. I've talked to a lot of different artists, who say that, obviously they were concentrating on their music, but they tried to find other hobbies or activities. I mean, I've had everyone say I learned how to play chess to, in my case, I've become an organic farmer, man. I've got all my veggies and everything growing. So I was just kind of curious if you kind of picked up any kind of side activity that you didn't do before pandemic.
Well, I've been doing my carpenter skills, I mean, I've been a big real estate guy since I can't do anything with it because I'm always gone. So I've always been fascinated by real estate and property. I mean, most people at least are fascinated about it to do some. Right. Building this awesome, studio, so being on tour, you come back home, you only get a week or two off. So you can't ever start a project. So it's been nice to just kind of do this on my own level and pace. And I'm a big sports guy. So put in a big basketball, kind of, what would you call it? A complex, and a place where I can go and kind of just not think music, so that was cool. Got into, it led into some sports cards talk because the sports card boom hit. And I had a lot of that stuff when I was young, and so I was like, if I don't get this stuff now, then I'll never do it. So I had all the Jordan rookies. I mean, I think I had just pages and pages of the high end Jordan rookie everyone wants, and so I had to make sure I didn't lose those. I think I had between 5 or 7 of them, ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
And no, mint condition, perfect.
Nice.
I'm not a big grading guy because I'm not going to sell it. So,
right.
So it's all good. I'm just keep it for the generation to go on. Just kind of cool. Like if your grandpa would have had a Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle,
right.
how awesome would that be to pass it down to your family? So it's been cool to kind of, do that in the sports card boom. Just reminds me again of something when I was young. So I like a lot of those hobbies, that just remind me of a time when there was no the stress was different. We weren't worried about pandemics and missing shows. So It's been kind of refreshing to do some of that stuff and get back to my youth and back to my roots, so to speak. So it's been cool. And of course, playing and writing, all that happens too, but not being forced to write. Just if it comes, pick up the guitar, jam out, So it's been cool.
I saw this article that said if rock is dead, then pop evil is the definitive proof of afterlife. And that's from Icon versus Icon.com. I love that quote, because especially the many times we've talked on here, where everyone's saying rock is dead. And you're just like, nah, dude, if it is, we're bringing it back to life. So here we are, 6 years later after we've talked about this previously, and you get a great quote about your band like that.
So it's humbling, and I think that when you're at least on today's rock star, whatever that means, is like it's blue collar. That's how I describe it. People ask me a lot. They're like, oh, what's it like to be a millionaire now? And you guys are all big and famous. I'm like, well, we talk about I had a bologna sandwich for lunch. It's not like that, So it's grind. It's blue collar. That's how we were raised. Mom and dad just coming back, and it's like, are we taking a family vacay? No, man, I got to work. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. Maybe Disney next year.
Yeah.
It's that constant grind. That's all we know how. So again, Pop Evil, the name of the band was purely Rock Crusader. That was what it was. When secular music was abandoning rock, or metal, we were kind of like, had that chip on our shoulder about like, look, well, let's remind them that, not only are we metal and rock hungry, but we're from Michigan, man. That's where we're from. That's what we do. That's who we are. And if we're going to, and I remember in the early days too, people would always say, if you're going to make it in this business, you need to move to New York or LA. I'm sure you heard it as well when you were young, kind of doing your thing as well. And you're like, well, okay, somewhere along the line, you realize that if you have what it takes, they'll come to you, and I always hated that analogy because I was like, well, they're not coming to me yet. So, it was always frustrating, but it's exactly true. The best advice, if you can build a story and some kind of momentum wherever you are, then it doesn't matter where you're from, so kind of having that pride to fight not only for myself and my family's roots, but the people that I've met along the way, the people that are from here that you live paycheck to paycheck, and music is kind of their savior, so definitely is great to see, our peers kind of taking notice and appreciating the hard work that we've done.
Yeah. When I first heard the album title Versatile, I was intrigued mainly because I felt the album was going to be a little more diverse than maybe what you guys had done on before, not really concentrate on one particular sound. Is that just something did it just happen organically, or something you kind of set out to do to shake it up a little?
No, I think it just, at least for the previous, 5 albums, we always the name. And, in this album, heavy to be heavy, and the experimental always is more melodic.
Right.
Obviously, hence the song Work. Work was, again, a funny story about Work was kind of, again, my sports roots. I got a lot of celebrity athlete friends that are always listening to hip hop, and EDM stuff. So I'm like, look, when are y'all going to listen to more rock? And they'll be like, when are you going to write it? So I'm like, okay, let's do it. You want it then? So we mixed the most EDM hip hop beat we could and just put as many guitars. And I'm like, I'm going to speak your language. I'm not even going to sing in the chorus. I'll just say all I do is work and let the guitarist take it away. So it started off with this fun kind of playful banter, and it just blew up it blew up kind of amongst my peers and kind of in my inner circle. It just blew up like that. I was like, oh my God, like this is my favorite jam. So it kind of quickly was like on our radar as a band to be like, well, maybe we got to put this thing out. Of course, our most experimental song of all time in an era when we can't even tour to play it. So, like, of course, our rock and our metal faithful were like, what is this?
Right.
And of course, there's people that love it, people that don't. But it wasn't so much about flipping a whole album like that. Like we want to definitely, we built a fan base over the past 20 years, and then getting people to, buy into our sound and be open to us growing and changing along the way. Like that's another thing that in the new era of rock band or rock star, like we don't get those $1 million budgets to make albums. So you kind of got to figure it out along the way. And somewhere along the way, you hope that you're getting and becoming a better studio musician, right? So, we've gotten better and smarter about things we want to experiment with, and not necessarily just the songs, but guitar tones. A lot of things on this, we definitely wanted to challenge ourselves with the drums. Obviously we have an amazing drummer with Haley, but we didn't want the drums just to sound stock. We wanted it to be different sounding, but still punch you in the face, and everything up into the mixing and mastering, like to bury the vocal. I don't want my vocal out, or what are we doing with that vocal effect? Even if it's, even people manipulate the auto-tune sound. If you're going to go there, then do it. Like, why are the other genres can be experimental, but we can't? No, exactly. Just manipulate it and make the sounds fresh, do something different. Like, obviously everyone's done a lot of it, so it's really hard to do something original. So again, I think this was like the first steps to trying to be more original with sounds and tones. It's taking things that people are familiar with, but like making our own spin on it. And then of course with my melody, putting my voice on top, and different stuff, it's just studio animal's so fun. It's how you can just do different things and play around with it, but not being afraid either, not being afraid of what your peers are going to think or what your fans are going to think, just doing what you think is going to build your live show and hopefully, make the live experience more enjoyable for our fans.
That's a great lead into my next question, because I wanted to kind of talk about the diversity of each member in Pop Evil. I mean, how hard is it to have diverse qualities in each person while you continue to be a tight band, with the same goal to kind of create this unique sound that all of you are collectively going for?
Yeah, I mean, it's a constant, it's always a growing and learning experience with other people in your life, because every album, every band member is in a different place, and they're growing up, we're kind of growing up around each other, but we're all very close, more like brother, sister, so we all kind of like go to our own bedrooms and then we meet for dinner, we all have a good time. But when we actually get into write, it's a little different. Like the band, doesn't necessarily, it's not about writing your own part as much anymore. It's like building a song, like what's the best for the song. Everyone's so much more disciplined from a writing standpoint now, which makes it even more fun. This album especially, like we wanted to harness the live energy that we do on stage. That's the one thing we hear from our fan base all the time. Like, wow, your live show is so fire. It's amazing. How do we get more of that? How do we bring that home? So, trying to get that, I think the big thing we did on this album was the demos. The demos are always such a yin and yang, stressful battle for me personally. So, you'll write a demo and it sounds awesome. I'll play it for you or family and friends. They're like, oh my God, I love the demo. And then you got to find a producer, and then you bring a producer in and we have to go record that, try to recapture that. Right. It just, how are you going to do that sometimes? So a lot of these songs are the first takes. It's that first time that we had the choruses in, like Breathe Again is a great example. Like that chorus you hear to this day was the day one when I wrote it. It was like, oh my God. And we were jumping up and down, high five. I'm like, oh my God, this melody is just, this is my favorite. And that's the thing, like fans don't always understand, like, and musicians can lie about it, but I know they feel the same way. It's like you write songs that you like, even though they're from you, but then you write songs that you do that you're like, wow, like I can't even believe like that came out of that's awesome. When you write something that moves you, where you don't even think that it's your band. It's just like, wow, that melody is what I needed right now. Yeah. So that energy from those first demo sessions, we wanted to build around that. So we brought the band to whatever studio or place that we were, actually it was all in-house studios we used this time. We don't want to waste money in studio because it's a waste of time. I love the vibe of being in somebody's house, and making it very, again, blue collar, maybe some Michigan in me, but like having that, and then we would bring the band in and then we would just, whatever we needed to do. If the guitar takes were good on the original demos, then we'd build to that, add to that, so every song was different, but it was just such a cool experience to just kind of have that energy. So we knew once you heard the demo and you liked it, I knew you would like it then when you heard it completely done on the album, because it was, pretty much the same roots. So it was a very cool experience to do that way. And it made it, that's the versatility, probably where the name comes from.
There is so many things I could say about Breathe Again. I mean, just some things that you've touched on, just the way the song kind of has that bum, 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 then takes like the little pause, I mean, I love that part. And then just the lyrics, man, about getting up, stand up. And then even more, I started thinking about George Floyd a little bit, and I Can't Breathe. And then we have this song called Breathe Again. And I mean, so this song has kind of hit me in different incarnations, I guess, that it has different meanings for me as it's kind of progressed,
Yeah, and you're exactly right. It's crazy how, even the whole I Can't Breathe thing has come up, and that was, the Breathe Again was written way before any of that, so it does have a lot of meaning to, I'm sure, a lot of fans that know the song, and you and me as well. So it's just crazy, man. When there's a song that's got a higher power or a bigger purpose, you just kind of just stand back, get out of its way, and it just does its thing. It's crazy.
Well, as we're talking today, it's sitting at number 2 on the Rock 30, and I have a good feeling, who knows, man, it might be number 1 next week. I'd love to see another number 1 song for you guys.
Fingers crossed, right? It's amazing.
What has been the interaction between you and the rest of the band? I know you guys were kind of doing a lot of virtual stuff at first. Now that you mentioned you've been vaccinated, are you guys doing more stuff together in the same room?
Well, we've done the video for, I think, Breathe Again. That was the first thing we did. Again, a lot of us, we're all in different places. So, I think we use this time, at least in the early, maybe 6 to 7 months of the pandemic, to kind of just okay, if we're going to be off, let's do things that we wanted to do for a long time, but never could, and again, a lot of the work and jobs elements are just what guys wanted to do. Like, Matt likes his things, Dave likes what he does, and Haley, of course, is in Europe. So she was dealing with a whole different set of challenges for her, but I know she was doing some teaching things and doing some virtual lessons, things that she just loved. She always doing things, drums and music related. And then of course, Nick, a lot of us got our families and friends that we haven't seen in a long time. So catching up with a lot of that, make sure everyone's safe. But as the end of summer kind of hit, we started to do a little bit more, at least communicating FaceTimes, a couple times a month, dialing in, getting ready for when it does happen. We're not so shocked. Where's everyone's head at? So obviously we'd love to do more in person, but we're not even close to each other. So right now we were ready. We had a couple things set to do, I want to say into April and May, but they kind of fell through. So that was a bummer, but there's cool stuff on the horizon. Festival dates booked, Shinedown, some great shows with Shinedown. We'd absolutely love Shinedown. So, it's going to be excited to be out with those guys. And just kind of just going through the motions. I think that a lot of us are numb to this. It's just like, okay, another day, especially for musicians. Cause right. It's like, okay, another day, what are we doing? And even working a job, if you're doing it and you're a musician, I know your focus isn't there. So you almost need like a job up at Starbucks to see you're not even bringing it home with you. It's just hanging out. It's like a hangout job, So again, building and the carpentry thing has been fun for me. Just takes my mind off, and it's just no stress, man. It's just been fun. Something I've wanted to do. It's like no different than a guy wants to go mow his lawn. Actually, I think I got to do that first started COVID. I haven't mowed a lawn in 20 years, So it was just great to just be normal, And I remember fighting with the family members when we first got back. It's like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? They're like, so when do you go on tour again? Because we didn't know how. It sounds stupid, but how do you live back at home for months on it? We didn't know what to do because you're always waiting for that next thing, that next tour, that next album. And our album was done. So it's like, I don't want to just go write because then I got to wait 2 years to go record it.
That's exactly right.
It's a lot of things to juggle.
It's a tough spot to put a band in. It's kind of interesting you mentioned Haley being in Europe and, they're a little bit behind the U.S., at least in vaccinations. So even when touring starts up, you still have I don't want to say worry, but at least the concerns like, well, what if my drummer can't get back here? And all of a sudden we got to deal with that,
Well, there's a good chance she's not going to be able to come back for the early part of our tours, which is fine. We're all close. Haley understands, the band. It's that the band rolls on mentality. As a team, there's a lot of people that feed and rely off the band. Like any band you talk to, there's a team underneath internally and crew that all kind of revolve around the pulse of a band, So Haley understands her role, and whoever the weak link at the moment, obviously it's not on her. It's not her fault. She's nothing she can do. She can't get over.
Yeah.
So we might have to, get a drummer in here to fill in a few dates till we get Haley back in, and that'll be a different element too. So I feel like when we do finally get back, it'll be a bit of a transition. That's why I kind of, I can't wait to just get playing so we can get back to, then once the band's ready and learning new material and we get comfortable, then are all fans going to be comfortable to come back? And I'm sure in some cities they'll be packed, and then in other cities it might be a little bit standoffish. So depending on where you're located. So I just can't wait to get kind of over that hump and get us back to, just playing and meet and greets where you can give hugs. I don't want to do meet and greets and have to wear masks and stand, back from your fan base.
Right.
It's kind of, there's a lot of different questions, but I just kind of, again, I think we're a lot of this that we're doing now. We just talking feelings and letting it out there, putting it out, and there's not really a direct answer coming back. That's a lot of the communication with us as band members. We're like, so it'd be great if we could do this. And they'll be like, well, yeah, and when we can do that. So it's a lot of just kind of feeling out the situation.
Yeah. Well, as we close out the show, I always like to give my guests a chance to do an artist pick to select a new track from the album that we haven't already talked about. So is there another particular song on there that you're liking at this point of your time?
There's a lot, but I want to go with Survivor because I think that it's a lot of us survived a lot of obstacles. It's not just about life and death survival. It's about surviving, whatever challenges that you're going through, and we've all gone through so many, this pandemic that, the big survival is when we can actually get back on stage and hear the roar of the crowd and have everyone say, we're doing this together. We survived together to get back to what we love the most, and that's music. So Survivor.
Love it. Thank you so much. 15 times for Leigh Kakaty and Pop Evil to co-host the Rock 30. I hope you can make it through Texas. I'll definitely drive to see if you at least get within, a couple 100 miles from Austin, man, because I am so ready to see you guys do these new songs live, man.
I can't wait, man. I can't wait to see you. Hopefully sooner than later. And thank you. Here's to another 15.
Exactly, man. All right, my friend. Well, have a great day. Good to see you and good talking to you.
Awesome.
Thanks man.